Comic Boom.
Hey guys, Comic Boom here to review Event Leviathan issue 3, and unfortunately things just seem to be getting more boring and less thrilling as this series progresses. This series started off, I thought, really well with issue 1. I thought we started off with some dialogue, some interesting dialogue in issue 1. There was a big explosion, an intelligence agency was destroyed, and Steve Trevor, Lois Lane, Batman, Green Arrow, and the Question ultimately came together by the end of issue 1. And I thought we were really off to the races. That this was really going to be building a mystery. But unfortunately, that's not what's happened. Issue 2 was a completely wasted issue where Batman essentially just literally spoke to Red Hood. And that's really all that happened. And Plastic Man found an arrowhead that apparently is linked to Red Hood in issue 2. So they think Leviathan's Red Hood. That was issue 2. Issue 3 now, the entirety of issue 3 is all these detectives chasing Red Hood down the side of a building, and then Lois Lane somehow getting to the bottom of the building before everyone else. This is, guys, I'm really struggling here because I want to be diplomatic. I don't want to I actually don't want to swear too much, but this actually, I don't have anything nice to say about this issue. I really don't. This was by far the worst issue so far, and it really shows that Bendis doesn't know what he's doing. We don't know. This is so boring. All that happens in this issue is that a bunch of detectives, like, imagine we got Green Arrow, Batman, Lois Lane, Elongated Man, Manhunter, chasing Red Hood down the side of a building. Red Hood suddenly, apparently Bendis thinks that the Red Hood is one of the best fighters, is a master fighter, better than anyone, including Batman. Not just better than anyone, but better than a whole slew of them chasing him down the side of a building. He escapes them all, manages to find 5 minutes to talk to Lois Lane, who somehow gets to the bottom of the building before everyone else. The dialogue, again, is very Bendis-like. It's, And what's the revelation? Did we learn anything new by the end of this issue? No, we didn't. We learned nothing new. We didn't learn anything new that we didn't already know. We know that Red Hood's not Leviathan. We know that's obviously not the case. But we have to have somehow Red Hood, Lois Lane interviews Red Hood for 5 minutes, and Red Hood actually tells Lois Lane that I just gave you 5 headlines. All Red Hood told Lois Lane was that he was an obvious suspect because he always felt that the wrong steps were taken to combat crime in the world. That they were just maintaining, that as heroes they were just maintaining the status quo, and that what Leviathan is doing, he understands that people might think it's him because Red Hood has always in the past complained that the methods that the heroes are using aren't good, so he can understand why he's a suspect. That's all he said to Lois Lane, that's it. And apparently he thinks that he gave Lois Lane 5 headlines for that. What's the big deal? How is that a revelation in any way? This is a dialogue heavy written issue, and the dialogue really suffers because it takes you out of the story. Bendis goes out of his way to give each hero a series and a set of paragraphs of useless dialogue where each tries to be funny. Each wants to make a little heckle or a little joke, or mumbling something under their breath. I guess this is Bendis' way of saying, look how much I know these characters. Unfortunately, and the thing is, he even gets some of the characters. Some of the dialogue exchanges are even good, but unfortunately, the plot doesn't move forward. I don't care about useless dialogue. And the other thing is that these are supposed to be the best detectives in the DC universe, and they've done nothing. This is a 6-issue series where at issue 3, nothing's happened. Like, I'm sorry, but if I gotta play script doctor here. But first of all, by issue 2, forget about issue 3. By issue 2, these detectives should have been scattered around the globe. Batman should have been in a different part of the world. Lois Lane should have been somewhere in Europe. Damian should have been somewhere. Green Arrow should have been in another part of the world. This should be a worldwide investigation because we're dealing with worldwide intelligence agencies that are being destroyed. And so where's the detective work being involved? What's the point of having 6 or 7 detectives together when they're not doing anything, when they're just standing on a rooftop? You spend an entire issue with a bunch of detectives standing on a rooftop and not actually doing any investigating. And so all they're doing is that they're all acquiring the same information at the same time in the same room. What's the point? What's the point of having a guest star if they're not actually going to contribute anything to the story other than just useless dialogue? This is absolutely, it's nonsense and it's crazy. And then in another boneheaded series of events, they end up all at Superman's Fortress of Solitude. Now, why would they go back to the fortress? Apparently now they've determined that Amanda Waller, they had to go to Red Hood, who's had no relationship at all in this story until now. It takes Red Hood to point out the obvious, that Amanda Waller is a suspect. Amanda Waller was at the Fortress of Solitude. She escaped, and yet they go back to the Fortress of Solitude to have a meeting, and they're not going to go to the Batcave, which is arguably the most secure place on the planet. Now, I'm not saying the Fortress of Solitude isn't a secure place, but again, Amanda Waller was just there and she escaped. Why would you go back there? Well, according to the story as forced by Bendis, well, apparently all these detectives, these brilliant detectives, don't bother to communicate with each other. It doesn't occur to Lois Lane to tell all the detectives, oh, by the way, Amanda Waller escaped the Fortress of Solitude. They're trying to save lives here by Lois's own admission. But this is how stupid they are. They don't make the connection. They don't actually communicate. All this dialogue, all this rambling Bendis speak, and they're not actually talking to each other and saying anything of substance and relevance to solve the very case that they're working on. What is going on? This is ridiculous. And the other thing here is Lois Lane gives a line to Red Hood here that I wanted to bitch slap her through the pages of the comic book. At one point she says to Red Hood that, trying to get Red Hood to take this seriously, she's saying, people are losing their lives here, And I'm thinking to myself, what do you mean people are losing their lives, Lois? It's an established plot point that people are not, in fact, losing their lives. Because one of the hallmarks of Leviathan is that there are no bodies. He's destroying intelligence agencies all over the globe, and there are in fact, no bodies, no corpses being found. So he or she, whoever Leviathan is not really that much of a killer. In fact, what we know for certain is some of Leviathan's men and women have been killed. But how many innocents have really actually died? That's one of the things, not that many. So far, this is just really an intelligence coup d'etat. That's what this is. Now again, some people have died. I don't want to belittle that, but it seemed like an odd thing for Lois to say. And this whole thing strikes me as odd. And then to top it off, Damian, upon this big revelation, Lois Lane finally decides to display some intelligence and to, again, Lois Lane under Bendis is an idiot. But then all these detectives, Batman's an idiot. All these detectives are all idiots. Finally, they collectively know that Amanda Waller was at the Fortress of Solitude. Then obviously it's compromised. Batman said it's compromised. Wouldn't Lois Lane think it's compromised? When they all decided to meet at the fortress, why wouldn't Lois Lane say, guys, we don't want to go to the fortress. Amanda Waller was there. Well, you didn't think it was maybe a good idea to bring that up before they went to the Fortress of Solitude and started to talk about all that they knew? But then, on the other hand, they don't know anything. So, it's not like Amanda Waller's going to discover anything. Amanda Waller, surprise, surprise, planted a bug that Damian finds at the Fortress of Solitude. And Green Arrow tells Amanda Waller, reminds Amanda Waller that, oh, by the way, Amanda, I want to remind you the same thing that I reminded Steve Trevor, that this all happened under your watch. Huh. Good one, Green Arrow. You're so smart. Yeah, and then it shows Amanda Waller hearing Green Arrow's comments, and she knows that her bug planted in the Fortress of Solitude has been compromised, and it shows her being confronted by Leviathan. And Leviathan is doing what Red Hood predicted that anyone who was Leviathan would likely do, and that is take out Amanda Waller, because Amanda Waller started everything. She was the one that started this whole antagonistic relationship between metahumans and humans. She was the one protecting the Earth from metahumans getting out of control via the Suicide Squad, via Task Force X, via the Janus Initiative in the pages of Checkmate, as originally written by Greg Rucka back in the 90s. And read the Janus Initiative. It's even mentioned here by Amanda Waller. I know, and the reason why, in case you're wondering what the Janus Initiative is, the Janus Initiative, which is mentioned by Amanda Waller, she says, well, say goodbye to the Janus Initiative. The Janus Initiative was at one point where Amanda Waller was supposedly killed, and she was replaced with a double. In fact, it was Amanda Waller that killed her double doppelganger and pretended to go along with the killings of various intelligence officials and various people all over the planet this is during the Janus Initiative, which is a comic book series back in the 90s. In any event, that was ultimately resolved, and at that time, then President Bush, in the pages of the comic book, sort of reappointed and revitalized Task Force X and Suicide Squad, and things were sort of, the status quo eventually returned. But in any event, that's what the reference here is. There's a reference here to the Janus Initiative, when Amanda Waller mentions it to Leviathan, and Leviathan's there with his minions to basically take out Amanda Waller, until of course Superman finally makes an appearance, because he was in space, because he's got his own messes to deal with in the pages of Action Comics, and in particular Superman, where he's battling Rogol Zar along with his Superman family. But in any event, the issue ends with Superman confronting, seemingly at the protection of Amanda Waller, and asks Amanda if these gentlemen are bothering her, and of course, we're going to have to wait till next issue to see how Superman deals with Leviathan. I don't expect anything significant to happen next issue. I don't expect any more revelations to happen next issue. What I do expect is some ridiculous power weapon by Leviathan to probably somehow incapacitate Superman. I don't expect a lot. But in any event, here, I should say something about the art. The art's okay. I'm not going to say it's great. Alex Maleev it's adequate art. It's something that is it suited for this type of storytelling? Well, it's an exceptionally boring story. Nothing happens. There's just a bunch of talking heads, talking to Red Hood as they're flying down a building. Exceptionally disappointing. I'm so disappointed in this. This isn't thrilling at all. It's boring as hell. It's not going anywhere. There's no substance. There's no revelation. There's no display of detective skills. There's no display of intelligence on the part of anyone. Even Batman's a moron. Even Batman says phrases that don't make sense. Like he says, "Just kidding." So you got to try to read. You got to read some of this dialogue out loud to realize how bad it actually sounds. It just doesn't make much sense. It goes on and on and on and on and on, and I'm just gonna leave it at that, and just say that I can't recommend this, but I have to read it. But I guarantee you that I now actually believe that by the end of issue 6, I don't think we're gonna know who Leviathan is. I predict we won't know who Leviathan is by the end of issue 6. And if we do know who Leviathan is, he or she, whoever it is, I predict that all we're gonna get is a revelation as to who Leviathan is and what the agenda is. That's it. That's all we're gonna know. And the agenda we already kind of know. We know it's just another way to fight crime and battle injustice in the world, and to deal more harshly with the criminal element. That's all this is. And eliminating the intelligence agencies. I don't know how it does that, because, I mean, you eliminate one intelligence agency, what's to stop? Leviathan can't prevent the government from creating another intelligence agency. So it doesn't even make sense. The entire premise of this storyline is ridiculous. It really, really is. I just don't buy it. And again, so disappointed in how, I mean, you take these so-called intelligent detectives of the DC Universe and you've actually managed to make them look more stupid. Unbelievable. Anyways, tell me what you think of Event Leviathan. You know what I think. And hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter at Metropolis40. Until next time, guys, Comic Boom out.